All right, folks, you're back in 3 weeks in a row. We got the ultimate preview for the Rams and Seahawks, part 3, featuring Joshios, and he is back. And we've done a great job, I think. We've touched on it after the fact and kind of been like, wow, the game kind of went about how we expected it to go or how it could go down. Some of the things that we talked about, showing its ugly head and rearing its ugly head, rather. And it's been cool. But Josh, welcome back. And, you've become a fan favorite here. So a lot of people here really excited to have you on JE Live and love what you bring to the table. So appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, it's an honor to be back. And particularly last week, I felt like we hit on a lot of things that happened. I said it could come down to a game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter, and it was overtime, but close enough.
Yeah.
And again, these were things that people came up to me after the game were like, "Oh, you said that was going to happen." And numbers do tell a story sometimes.
And that is for damn sure. So looking at this, we're going to just dive right into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, check out at Joshios Tweets on Twitter. You can check me out on all social media at JK Bogan. So Josh, getting started here, you have NFC playoff quarterbacks, which obviously is Stafford and Darnold, based on coverage since week 12. Now, is this the two games that they've played, or is it? Oh no, it's week 12. Okay, so take me through this. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Because I'm seeing right away, Matthew Stafford with an incredible EPA score up here, against cover 0, which isn't a shock, number 2 in the league. But you see some things that Sam Darnold's good at, and we'll be honest here, the Rams don't run a ton of cover 1, as we can see here down below. So, they run a decent amount, but nothing crazy. So let's talk about it. I mean, what are the things that really stand out to you between these two quarterbacks based on the coverages they're going to see?
Yeah, and the first thing that I wanted to note is about the exact placement that I have on this chart since week 12, because Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions in the week 11 game, and since then you've seen an offensive identity shift of Seattle, and I wanted to point that out here. And overall, way less frequency of passes from that team. They're a running first team, and that shows up. But let's talk about it, though. Again, every time we bring this up, Matthew Stafford, cover 0. He's the best. And again, last week, we saw some struggle with identifying protection, some issues with that. There was some players blitzing that literally were not even touched and sacked Stafford, and that's an issue that needs to be cleaned up. But ultimately, when these are properly recognized, Matthew Stafford knows exactly where to go, and you got to be careful about sending extra men to rush Stafford, because he will replace where you were supposed to be and throw the ball. And we can look at Sam Darnold here. Cover 1 is his best coverage, but like you said, the Rams only run it 17% of the time, so not a huge concern to me. And if we go around here, he's number 8 in cover 4. So cover 3 is where he seems to struggle, and cover 2 as well. And the Rams run cover 2 at 21% and cover 3 at 32%. So that's basically half of the time they're in either one of those coverages. And that's kind of why you've seen this struggle from Sam Darnold. Yes, he played good in the latter half of week 16, but other than that, he was struggling significantly. And that's because of what the Rams want to play is exactly advantageous to stopping Sam Darnold, dropping back into coverage, mugged looks, and you bring back the people on the line to drop back in coverage. Kobe Turner got an interception. So these are all things that are going to test Sam Darnold and his ability to read pre-snap.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear you there. And, I don't think you'll see as much cover 1. Obviously, I know Sam Darnold loves that, but you probably won't see a lot of it. You're probably going to see a lot of cover 3, and you'll see some cover 2. And the reason being is because of Rashid Shaheed's threat, and he's not great against cover 2. So, 27th in the league, 24th in the league, I believe you said, out of 36 quarterbacks. So that's not ideal for Sam Darnold. Whereas, Matthew Stafford, really not any of these he's awful at, versus, right? He's fantastic against cover 0, and, he's not great against cover 1, but again, we'll look down here. I mean, Seattle doesn't run cover 1 as much either. So that's another thing. And so, yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm not really thinking that you're going to get the entire picture of Matthew Stafford based on coverages. And I also think it's tough right now because I think a lot of people are saying that the offense is struggling and everything and how it just doesn't look the same. And I think there's some context that's needed. I mean, without, Kevin Dotson, this has looked like a different offense. Without Tyler Higbee for a bit, they weren't able to run 13 personnel the way they did against the 49ers week 10. I think these are things that need to be discussed and aren't always discussed because people like leaving context out of, whatever they're throwing out. But let's scroll down here. So the defensive coverages by team. This is since week 12. The fourth most usage of cover 6 by Seahawks. I mean, you look at, Matthew Stafford against cover 6, he's top 10 in the league. This is very good stuff. And then the Rams have the fourth most usage of cover 2, and Sam Darnold is 27th. And this is not good stuff. So that's an advantage there for the Rams. And now we go to the pressure versus no pressure. And you might be surprised to see Sam Darnold handles pressure a little bit better on a page, but I think the film would otherwise dictate, I think, a different story because while Stafford might not have the success rate that maybe you're looking for, I do think Darnold is going to take way more risks. And I think you go back to week 11 and you see some of those situations, he's letting go of that ball completely off balanced. There's one where he's doing a jump throw that just was so ill-advised. I have no idea what he's thinking. There's the throw to Kobe Durant where the guy is just absolutely blanketed. So there are a few things that you could point to, but I mean, what are your takeaways, from this look, Josh? Because for me, it's really not a surprise. I think it's unfortunate because Matthew Stafford's pressure stats were insane at the beginning of the year. He was dealing with a lot of pressure without Avila. He was dealing with a lot of pressure just in general because Habenstein wasn't playing his best ball. And now, you're starting to see, the pressure has gotten to him a little bit, albeit maybe that Bears game and miscommunication and you could even say to a degree just the lack of their, execution has put him in harm's way.
I think it's definitely a few factors. And like you mentioned, Sam Darnold under pressure, he takes bigger risks. And I have this pulled up right here. Sam Darnold with 6 interceptions when pressured. Stafford only has 3. So if Stafford doesn't like what's there and he doesn't have time to throw the ball, he's just going to throw it away or take a sack. And ultimately, that's not great for your offense. That's going to be negative expected points added because you're going the opposite way, but it doesn't end your possession. You still have another chance. And that's something that you should distinctly notice between the two quarterbacks. Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions, like I said, the first game, and turnovers definitely in the second game. So again, he might be lower in the ranking, but he tends to play it safer and allow the offense to live another day.
Yeah, and of course, Sam is going to play some pretty safe football until he plays against the Rams because, I think you look, I mean, aside from that Colts game, they really have just kind of not been much of a matchup for most teams. But with the Rams, it's a completely different story. And I saw pretty recently there was a tweet that showed that the Rams, 28 points per game against Seattle, in the Sean McVay versus, and not even just Seattle, Sean McVay versus Mike McDonald, even that one game back with the Ravens, 28 points per game. Everyone else, 18 or below. And so that's kind of a reminder that, Sean McVay has gotten beat by McDonald on a few occasions, but at the same time, Sean McVay is keeping up with that defense, and he is still able to do things that you want to do. And I think a big reason for that, not to take anything away from McVay, but a big reason is you have Matthew Stafford, the precision passing, his ability, he creates the touchdown in overtime to Puka Nacua in week 16 by basically just manipulating the coverage. Ernest Jones just kind of gets him to slide away from it, and he throws a dot. But that's what you're talking about. So, that's the pressure there. And then the throw length, which I like this a lot because this kind of gives you an idea. This is where Sam Darnold can beat you. Sam Darnold's not afraid to throw deep down the field. He doesn't do it a ton, but when he does, he can pull the trigger, and he's not one for an underthrow. I think we have to remember, he was one of the top quarterbacks in his draft for a reason. He was one of the top picks in the draft for a reason. You watch him at USC, especially that Rose Bowl game against Penn State that had like Saquon Barkley and Chris Godwin and all those guys. And you could see right away, I mean, the guy's special, right? I watched him a lot in college, as far as throwing the deep ball. And they have somebody that I just don't think they've utilized a lot in the receiving game. Rashid Shaheed has not dropped a pass since 2023. So they could very well be targeting Rashid Shaheed down the field. This could be his breakout game if the Rams let him. But then again, the Rams don't really allow the deep ball, and we talked about this because, you want to throw the deep ball, but you also have to worry about the pressure. And if they're able to get after you, you're not going to be able to have those long developing plays. So, Josh, talk me through it. What are your thoughts kind of looking at this whole thing and what you think going into this game?
Yeah, so this is since week 12, and people have said that the offense has regressed a little, and that's definitely true, like all the factors that we discussed, losing Kevin Dotson, etc. But I want you to look at deep throws and look at specifically the amount of attempts. Sam Darnold has only had 16 deep throw attempts since week 12. And if you look at every metric here, Stafford has only played one extra game because of the wild card. Stafford has significantly more attempts, and that's almost purposeful because Seattle, like I mentioned, is now a run-first team, and it was something they were trying to do all season and started to do after Sam Darnold's turnovers got out of hand. And since then, they've significantly lowered, but at the same time, they're not really passing the ball anywhere close to the levels that they were, where JSN was having extreme levels of productivity, where it's kind of decreased by now. He's still a great receiver, but you see that in yards per route run, over a yard decrease since week 12. But this is what they want to do. And this is what the Rams have to do to get them out of this. They need to stop the run. They need to make sure that this run success that they were having against 49ers in 2 games, by the way, 2 games out of the last 3, and they need to stop that because as soon as you stop the run success, they have to lean on Darnold. That's what you want. You want to live or die on the hands of Sam Darnold because that's the only chance they've given you to turn the ball away. And if he throws for a lot of yards, then so be it. But you have to make sure that he's the one that wins that game or loses it for that matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great point that he made only 16 attempts deep down the field. Like when he is able to throw deep down the field, he's really not afraid. Like he's going to pull the trigger if he has an option, but you're going to predominantly see him throwing short intermediate. And I think Clint Kubiak is just aware of who Sam Darnold is. I don't think he's trying to dress him up as a Superman or anything like that. I mean, ideally, it would be nice for Seattle to be like, yeah, we totally believe Sam Darnold could win a game on his arm, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, do what Stafford did. But they don't feel that way. And that's not realistic, right? So they know, they're trying to kind of bottle him up. And they've been taking advantage of the fact that they haven't been in a lot of games where Sam Darnold needs to throw the football down the field in the recent games. I mean, we're talking about the 49ers games, both 49ers games, week 18, and of course the first playoff game Sam Darnold won. He wasn't needed in that game. They were able to run the football, 3 rushing touchdowns, this past week. And then on top of it, you get the special teams touchdown, you get the special team success, and you get the defense. And I think that's the thing. If as soon as you start to force Sam Darnold to have to make plays, that's where the Rams have a significant advantage. And it's not even hating on Sam. It's that we don't know if he can do it. We haven't seen him do it. And, I think a lot of, Seahawks fans were jumping to the conclusion that meant just winning a playoff game. That's not what it means. We have yet to see him in a really high leverage spot in the postseason be able to come through and win it. And this, to me, is that game. He was great for a fourth quarter and overtime, in that comeback. But again, there were a lot of things, and maybe the greatness is a little overblown. Maybe he was great in overtime, maybe not even really in the fourth quarter because, they get stopped. He throws an interception at the goal line, big man interception, and then they stop the Rams, and then they get a punt return touchdown that pretty much makes it a one-possession game at that point. So it's not as simple as just Sam Darnold was excellent when he had to be. He made the throws, in overtime, but I do think that gets a little lost in translation as well. And kind of looking at this, I think Stafford's going to live in that intermediate part of the field. I don't think that he really needs to take deep shots down the field. This is a team that, I think really should be trying to have 10 to 12 play drives and really kind of sustain success and sustain the time of possession. You're on the road, but also tire out the defense. I don't care if you have the greatest defense of all time, 85 Bears, Legion of Boom, no fly zone, Broncos. I don't care who you have. No defense can withstand when they're tired. They just can't deal with it. And so that is your equalizer there. Can this offense keep the defense on the field while moving the chains? And I think they can, Josh. And I think that's going to be a big way for them to try and win this football game.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is what the Rams want to run. They want to run the football well and then set up play action with in-breaking routes down the field. If they can do that, then I believe they can win this game. But if you can't get the run game going, then you're going to have trouble. And again, last week, Sean McVay says that it was more of how they were responding that they chose not to run the ball, But it needs to happen against Seattle because I just don't know if you can have enough passing success, passing 75% of the time against Seattle. You need to run the ball and set up play action.
Well, yeah, because then now it's no different than the Lions where they know you're throwing. And so Stafford threw a lot of interceptions in his days with the Lions, everybody points out, but he also threw a lot of touchdowns. The reality is when you're down and they know you have to throw it, it makes it that much easier to stop. And another thing, I want to bounce this off you. I've been thinking about it, brought it up on a few shows. Right now, I'm a little concerned that the Rams have gone so far away from using Xavier Smith and Tutu Atwell that they're not really putting enough speed on the field, which isn't really, giving any sort of resume for a defense to play back. And they can kind of sit on routes and they can kind of just play man coverage. And that's my concern because you have Tutu Atwell and you have Xavier Smith, and these are guys that had success. When utilized, very rarely is Tutu. It just feels like they're missing that speed guy that can create things underneath, and they're kind of trying to do it the hard way. And I don't really understand it because, you would say, oh, well, Jake, if they're in 13 personnel, it doesn't matter. There's going to be one receiver, whatever. And that's fine. But I'm talking about they ran 13 personnel probably, 5-10% of the time last week. It was predominantly 11 personnel, and we'll get to that. But the point being is they run 11 90% of the time against the Bears, and you could see the Bears have decent corners. Their safeties are ball hawks. They give up a lot of touchdowns, but the Bears weren't scared of the Rams. They were playing up. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams aren't going to beat them over the top necessarily. They don't have that speed. Puka has good speed. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill speed. And I think that's the thing right now that the Rams, if you want to point, finger point at anything in the offense, aside from just saying they need to run the football more, do you think it's fair to say that, they're missing that deep threat, the guy that can be the clear out and maybe even just a threat that you could actually take a shot down the field with? Because it just feels like, regardless of how you feel about Atwell, they're not even using Xavier Smith anymore.
I think it's clear that they aren't going to use Tutu Atwell at any level that he previously was, but I do think a speed person is important, and Xavier Smith has played well in that role. We saw last week a little concept that relied on this against the Bears, where we had Xavier Smith running a vertical route, and you had Terrence Ferguson take a sail underneath. So you're pulling back the safeties to allow a player like Terrence Ferguson to make a sideline catch. And that's not possible if you don't have someone that the defense is scared of going all the way. And that's why you need someone like Xavier Smith on the field. And again, I am sort of confused about the lack of involvement from these players. But again, do you trust Sean McVay and his plan? Yes. But also, you see other teams with their offense, with that speed guy, use them more effectively, and you wonder why the Rams can't do the same.
As the number one offense in the league, too, it's kind of surprising. Looking at the running backs, this is intriguing now because, without Zach Charbonnet, this is going to be a little bit of a toughie here for Seattle. And I understand there are people hearing this and they're like, wait, you're not high on Charbonnet. You're pro Kenneth Walker. I am. But I'm also not ignorant to the fact that they use them in tandem. And it's no different than if you took Kyren Williams off the Rams and it's just Blake Corum, bell cow. I don't think Blake Corum would be that great. I think you'd probably be looking at a 4.2 yards per carry average. He would not be at 5.1. I think both can exist. I mean, we know Kyren can do his thing. He's been a bell cow. He was a bell cow last year, over 300 carries. But right now, the way the Rams offense is and the way Seattle's offense is, the run game, that's just the way it is. It's like they need to have that dual backfield. It's funny, I'm hearing a lot about George Holani and Cam Akers. I'm like, bring on Cam Akers. He'll fumble 2 more times in the in the playoffs. But no, all jokes aside, Kyren Williams, I mean, the numbers look good, especially on second down. It feels like that second down yards per carry without the stacked box is insane. And are they even going to really be stacking the box? I mean, Seattle is going to play. They're going to be in nickel. They stay in nickel, and they're going to have, Eamon Wardy out there, and they're going to play back because you have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams. I don't really think they're going to, because they believe that they're good enough to get there and stop the run and just be a wall without having to actually stack the box. But what say you when you look at all of this?
Yeah, I don't expect there to be much usage of stack box rate. The Rams and the Seahawks are bottom 10 in stack box usage. They don't use it because, like you said, they love to run nickel, and the Rams do as well, and they run dime even. So they are confident in their selection of personnel to stop the run because, again, Quentin Lake is that corner defensive back, but he is excelling at stopping the run. That's how they're able to do this. And this is what I found interesting, is that without Zach Charbonnet, they are in trouble in light box running. Because if you look here, Zach Charbonnet is doing all the carrying on no stack boxes. Look at second down. 77.8 success rate on 9 rushes on second down since week 12 in the light box. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And you look at Kenneth Walker and you see some struggle there. Around 31% on second down and 32% on first down. So if we're going to run a light box, they're going to need someone to answer and do the role that they're assigned to do and make yards.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see this. Kenneth Walker not having the best success. Obviously we've seen recently what he can do, but it looks like he's better against the stacked box, especially on a first down, 611 yards per carry, which is the highest outside of Blake Corum's first down. But yeah, it does feel like now Seattle isn't really running their offense the same way they've been running it. And I think that really benefits the Rams because they already have the better offense. No one's debating that. But if all of a sudden the Rams can establish the run, and to be honest with you, I understood that they weren't able to really do it the last game, but they did it the first game and they just went away from it. And I think just when you look at the second game, Kevin Dotson going down had to have an impact on the run game. And we've seen, they ran the ball pretty well. It's what I call postseason success. You're not going to run it, 5.9 yards a carry normally in the postseason, but a 4.2 average for Kyren on 21 carries, you'll take that. And I think they're going to be able to run the football against Seattle because they can run in 13 and they can run with Dotson. And I think that's going to be big and that's going to be very key and critical for them to win this game. And, I think you look over at Seattle and it's like if Kenneth Walker, who doesn't provide a different look, because Kyren is kind of the bell cow, if they need him to be, he can be the power back, whatever. And then you look at Corum and he's more of the explosive back. There's not, 2 different flavors in Seattle. You have Walker, you have Holani, who's like, he's a guy, and then you have Cam Akers, he's a guy. So I think that's a big deal there, where now you're telling me the way that they have operated on offense at this dual backfield has basically allowed them to bury Sam Darnold behind a wall, because now all of a sudden they're doing all the dirty work. The defense is doing the dirty work, and they're keeping Sam kind of, they're saving him from himself. But now you're telling me, you don't have Charbonnet, and we're seeing here with the Charbonnet stuff, looks really good, albeit maybe not as many opportunities and no stack box situations, probably pushing as to why those numbers are as good. But you look, that's a significant loss for them based on the way they use him. So that is the real intriguing thing. And you have here notes without Zach Charbonnet included on the season, 32nd in light box rush on early downs, 14th in stack box rush on early downs, 61% early down stack box usage for Rams since week 12, eighth least in the NFL. So it's definitely interesting. And the thing that really benefits the Rams is that they have a passing attack where, regardless of what people want to say, they're still scoring about 27 points per game the last four. If you include their last six, they're scoring 31. So, like you said, it's dropped off a little bit, but it's not a ton. And this is a team that their passing attack can open up the door for the running game. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about because Seattle's, they don't have the passing game the Rams do. So it is a little bit easier if you did want to stack the box. You theoretically could. Whereas the Rams, it's kind of like they don't really give you a chance with some of the looks they're going to throw your way.
Yeah, and just something I was reading the comments, we're not saying that Zach Charbonnet is better than Kenneth Walker, although you could argue that, but personally, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so
But
either.
when you have two running backs splitting the load, they are able to both work more efficiently. And that's just something you see in every team. When Kyron Williams this year, he's taking a less snap count, but he's more productive. And that's because you're not on the field every play. You have less responsibilities. So while Kenneth Walker might be the better performing running back, without Zach Charbonnet, his performance could decrease.
Yeah. I don't know why the Rams run to the left side when it comes to Corum based on this. It just seems like he's a better running back when he's running to the right. Charbonnet has a lot of success running to the left, a lot of success, and he has success in the middle and, of course, right guard. Kenneth Walker, not able to run left guard nearly as well, but left tackle, there's some good numbers there. Left end, good. Right tackle is pretty bad, and overall, I mean, it kind of all evens out. I mean, they're all good running backs in their own right. But I think Kyron Williams is definitely the key to this game because the Rams told you last week. They settled the debate. There's a debate in this fan base. Who's the better back, Kyron or Blake? Should Blake get more carries? Well, they told you. They go back and forth. They give Kyron a series, and they give Blake a series, and they give Kyron and Blake and so forth. They told you who they trust. They literally did not run the football when Blake Corum was on, during his series. And then when Kyron was in, that's when they ran the football. You can see 21 carries to 6 carries. So they told you. And I think Kyron and Kenneth Walker, those two could literally decide the game. If Kyron has a game and he's able to establish the run and he's able to follow his blockers and he sets up Blake Corum. If Kenneth Walker has a really good game, it's going to keep Sam Darnold out of harm's way. But if Kenneth Walker struggles, they can't just move to Charbonnet. They're either with Holani or they're with Cam Akers. And I'm sorry, I'm not scared of either of them. I'm just not. I love the way the Rams responded. Stopping the run. This postseason, they've been great. Like, ever since the Falcons game, shocker, ever since they got somewhat healthy, they have really been back to stopping the run the way they do. They might give up an explosive run here and there. That's the NFL. But you look at the way they defended, Mr. Bowling Ball, Monangai. He had like an explosive run, and then for the most part, they held him to 3.2 yards a carry? I mean, you'll live with that, and DeAndre Swift had about as good of a game as Jonathan Taylor had in week 4. You'll live with that. If that's the type of game, which I do believe it is, for Kenneth Walker, it's going to force Sam Darnold to have to throw the football.
Yeah, and if we talk about run defense, last game, it was probably one of the best all season. They had 4 plays where they caused negative yardage behind the line of scrimmage. The Rams hadn't done that all season in any game. And also, I posted this on my Twitter, 50% of the Bears' runs were for 2 or less yards. And that's 14% worse than their season average. So clearly the Rams were doing something right. And maybe weather is a factor there. But again, when the Rams did run the football, they had success. So is weather an excuse? Maybe. But one team had success and the other didn't. So But when we look at this matchup, and what I want you to know, let's look at left end. Like you mentioned, they have tight ends that are great lining up right there. AJ Barner that are going to block well. So that's probably why you see success there from Zach Charbonnet. And that makes total sense to me. But the Rams need to figure out in the first quarters of each game. I have the stat pulled up right here. In week 11, the first week, they had 79 rushing yards. That's the most that Seattle has ever allowed in a quarter this season. And in week 16, in quarter one, the third most yards allowed in a quarter by Seattle, 36 yards. And then for some reason, the Rams didn't adjust or they stopped, they gave up. But the Rams need to figure out how to get that level of success the whole game. Because if not, you're going to struggle. And it's great to have it first quarter, but what about the other three quarters, you know? And that's probably my biggest concern is that Seattle, they adjust and they adjust throughout the game and they get better. And you seem like the Rams aren't adjusting back to figure out new ways to beat the adjustments.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. The run game is going to be huge. It just is. I know the Rams have a passing attack that could give anybody problems, but if you're able to establish the run against this run defense, and I do believe the Rams are going to be able to run the football because I think it's one of those things where later on in the year, the trenches kind of wear out a little bit. You know, you're playing your 20th, 21st game of the year. There you go, right? So I think they're going to be able to run the football. And I think the big thing is when you go back and you watch week 11, you go back and you watch week 16, Kyren Williams has this contact balance about him where he does a really nice job of staying up and he doesn't get the home run, hit. So there are people that don't give him his credit, but you look at him making guys miss and staying on his feet and he's moving the chains. And bottom line is the Rams just need their running backs to get 4 yards a carry in this game. And that's going to be enough. They just need to have a consistent run game. They need to be able to show, like, if I run the football here, I'm not losing 3 yards, right? Because then Sean McVay will pull the plug on it. So I think that's the big thing there. Looking at the wide receiver tight end combos that you have. So this is pass catchers on the field against the Seahawks. This is just against the Seahawks. Really interesting stuff here because Davante Adams did not even play the second game. So the EPA per play is actually the highest, although there's only 6 instances here with Adams, Higbee, Smith, and Nacua. But as you can see here, you got Smith here twice at the top. He's the favorite target of this instance. Obviously, the biggest one is this one, and this is the one that we saw predominantly. Puka Nacua is the favorite target, 42 different instances of this. Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, Puka Nacua, Terrence Ferguson, that 11 personnel or the 13 personnel that they used on Thursday Night Football, that makes a lot of sense that would be used that much, would be that high. And, as much as I like Davis Allen, I think you add Tyler Higbee to the mix, and that's an even better unit. So I'm excited because I think we are going to see that. And I think they're going to be cautious about how they utilize Davante Adams because he was a little banged up at the end of the Bears game. You could see he came out of the game after that catch, landing on his knee. You could tell. And I think this is going to allow them to try to give some breathers, and it's going to allow them to kind of be in a different position. Whereas, in the past, you run 11 personnel, and Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Josh Reynolds, for instance, or Brandon Cooks, or they're going to be on the field for 95% of snaps. So I think the 13 personnel grouping does allow the Rams to get a little creative and maybe even give some of these guys a bit of a breather. But what say you? I mean, what really stands out here for you among these different instances on the field and kind of the combinations that we see here?
Yeah, I've seen a lot on Twitter. People talk about Davante Adams playing the first game, only getting 1 catch for 1 yard. I think that's overblown. Do I think he had a great game? Obviously not. But do I think his value on the field is noticeable? Of course. Because even if the ball is not going to Davante, his presence on the field attracts people. And this happens a lot with Puka. When you see Puka for a hitch route, for example, these corners playing zone, they come closer to Puka. They move down towards him, even if he's not getting the ball, just because of how valuable he is and the potential danger if he has the ball. And Davante Adams is the next closest receiver on the Rams that I feel like has that sort of threat. And there's no statistic that officially measures this, but this is just intuition and watching film. Davante Adams is key. But so is the same thing with Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee is one of our tight ends that can stretch the field. Terrence Ferguson as well. But those are the two that stretch the field. And you saw that in the Arizona game. You see this in a few games. And so Tyler Higbee and Davante Adams being back at full health, because like I mentioned, Tyler Higbee was in week 11, but he was hurt and he later went IR because of the injury sustained in that game. But with both of them close to full health, I think this can be dangerous. And that top instance, with only 6 instances, I believe that should be run a lot more times.
Yeah, and I would say this, this is going to be the healthiest the Rams have been all year. I mean, I know it sucks not having a Kello, but for the most part, they have everybody. And Seattle is pretty healthy too. They just don't have Charbonnet. So they're both missing like a starter there. But when you look, it's like this is an offense in the Rams. And then, let's look at the defense. Last 9 games, Seattle has allowed 11 touchdowns. 7 of them have been the Rams. You look at 3 in the game where, we act like they were walking in place, the way Seattle fans act. I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns in that game. And then they score 4, in the primetime game. So it's something to think about, and I think that, we're definitely going to see Colby. We're going to see Puka. We're going to see Terrence Ferguson, Tyler Higbee. I think that's going to be one of them. I think we're going to see 11 personnel. I think they're going to mix it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some things that we've never seen from Sean McVay. And I think one of those things is going to be a hook and ladder play, because we have not yet to see that. We've seen it around the league. Like the Bills used it in the playoffs. And he even mentioned, like, he was watching the playoffs. He's watched some of these games, right? And we haven't seen Sean McVay pull off a hook and ladder since the divisional round of the playoffs against the Packers in 2020. Well, it was the 2021 year at that point. And then Stafford, I think a week later, was traded to the Rams. We have not seen that. I feel like that's the type of thing you got to do against this defense. You got to just throw everything in the kitchen sink at them, be creative, have those little wrinkles. And I could absolutely see one of those things where, and I see, in the comment section, I could see a Philly special play, Jake. This is the type of stuff you pull out all the stops. I mean, it's Mike Vrabel catching a touchdown season. It's actually literally Frank Crum caught a touchdown last week for the Broncos. You're just trying to find an edge, and really would not be surprised if we get some sort of crazy thing. I don't know if what your thoughts are on that, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Sean McVay pulls out the stops for some sort of tricky, I don't want to say trick play, but a hook and ladder, something like that.
If needed, pull it out. This is a game where creativity will win the game on both sides.
No, I definitely agree. All right, so looking at this, pass catchers on the field against Los Angeles, AJ Barner is the favorite target of that. That's a crazy EPA per play. Saubert, Kupp, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and AJ Barner. So it's that 12 personnel grouping that they like. They run 12 a lot. Rams run 13 a lot. Rams also run 11. What say you about all this? Because what I'm learning here is that 11 personnel with Barner isn't exactly working, which is interesting, because you would think having JSN, Rashid Shaheed, and Cooper Kupp on the field with Barner, you're kind of towing the line of a 12 personnel because the way Cooper Kupp can block, and it seems like that would be, a way to somewhat run what you do, but be a little bit more athletic and have a little bit more in the chamber. But that's the most they've run it against the Rams, and the Rams have bottled it up. So it looks like the best, instances for them, you can go and look at Cooper Kupp. Cody White has been in there with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Elijah Arroyo. It's interesting how, Rashid Shaheed is kind of the negative one in the 11 personnel, whereas Cody White is actually, we're talking about positive EPA per play. But what say you, man? What are your thoughts looking at this?
Yeah, if you actually look at that 55 instances with the 11 personnel, including AJ Barner, that's the most of any instance across the two games that they've played, both Rams and Seahawks. But what you notice is that it's slightly negative. It is green because it's still above average, but it's negative 0.13 EPA per play. And the Rams, with their most used instance of 42, are positive at 0.17. So clearly, this kind of makes sense to me because their most alternate personnel on the field, they've had major success in the 2-point conversion, which isn't counted in these instances. Same thing, they actually have more success with the personnel that you wouldn't expect to have success. And I feel like that shows up exactly here.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then kind of looking at these offensive line combinations against Seattle. And guys, keep in mind, this is just against Seattle. It's why it is what it is. But you have the most snaps, obviously, because Kevin Dotson went out in that game. The Rams only had 28 pass attempts for Matthew Stafford in the first game in week 11. So you didn't see as many snaps offensively, shorter fields, of course, because of the 4 turnovers. But the 71 snaps here, I mean, you could see the rush isn't quite where you would want it, but the pass was really good. The EPA per play was really good. This is one of those things I would call a little bit of an outlier, kind of looking at it. I don't think Diedish makes them a better pass protecting offensive line. I think that was just one of those nights where it was a short week, and I think the short week affected both defenses more than the offenses. And so I think that definitely helped. But kind of looking at, this right here with Havenstein, Shelton, Dotson, Jackson, and Avila, that's the closest thing I think we're going to see to what they're running, because, you got only 21 snaps of the current offensive line. But this kind of giving you an idea. I mean, the EPA per rush was almost in the positive there. And then, the pass was, in the negative, and I think that's where it gets better by having Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? It doesn't look great because I know a lot of people are looking at the negatives here, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about it. I think they got the right 5 for the job this weekend.
Yeah, so with Kevin Dotson back, if you look in the middle, that's where Dotson excelled, and that was, I believe, week 16 and a little of week 11. 55% run success, which is great. And why you see the EPA per rush as negative is because, first off, there was a turnover on downs where they attempted to run the ball. So that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help you there. And when you look at the average of EPA, if you have one play, a severe outlier that was an extreme detriment to the offense, it's going to tank your EPA. But if you look at success rate, which treats every play equally, 55% of all of the runs were successful. So that's what you need to look forward to, is that Kevin Dotson is that guy in the run game. I don't think he makes much of a big difference in pass protection. Of course, it's better. It's definitely 100% better. But where you actually notice it and where the numbers show a clear, distinct difference is in run success.
Yes. No, that's very true. I mean, the run success is clearly focused on the last time these two played, and they had their offensive line healthy. And it really does make you wonder. I mean, 21 snaps. Do they win that game if Dotson's in there? Are they able to run the ball a little bit better than they did? Because, I mean, they kind of had to abandon the run and make it just predominantly an 11 personnel attack, pass happy attack. And they did that without Devontae Adams and Tyler Higbee, so these are things that I don't think are talked about nearly enough if you're not watching like a Rams YouTuber, or if you're not following Joshios tweets. These are things that, like, do you think really like the everyday sports casting, sports debate show is talking about how the Rams didn't have Kevin Dotson for most of that game and they blew a 16-point lead? They absolutely did, but a lot of that came down to their inability to want to run the football, or inability to run the football. And maybe if Dotson's in there, one of those 3 and outs isn't a 3 and out. And then, so that's the thing, is like, you have to look at it in that, way. And then look at the defensive line combos here. So the most damage done is Jaron Reed here with 22 pressures. This is minimum of 15 pressures. This is for the year, right? This is just
Yeah, this is for the
altogether.
year.
I was
Correct.
gonna
Yeah.
say he has 22 pressures in 2 games. That's insane. 51. Yeah, there we go. Jaron Reed, he was banged up. He came back. He's a big part of what they do because he's a rotational piece. DeMarcus Lawrence is very, very good. Uchenna Nwosu, very good. Of course, like Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe. If you look, everybody is really good at football. Everyone on this page is really good at putting pressure on a quarterback and having success doing so. But you look at the Rams here, and you can't scoff at this either. Jaron Reed, that's a little bit of a smaller sample size, so maybe that's why it's higher there. But, I mean, you look, this is where you want to be. This is the meat and potatoes here of the EPA. And Verse and Byron Young and Fisk and Turner and even Josiah Stewart, he's done a really nice job lately. This is some impressive stuff. But you know what's so funny to me is that you would never know looking at this that Matthew Stafford has not been hit yet in any of these games. So that to me is bonkers, right? And it's not like Sam Darnold's been sacked 9 times like he was against the Vikings, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts kind of looking at this? What are your thoughts in this game? Because I do think the Rams are going to get after Darnold. And I got to be honest, I don't trust left tackle. He's dealing with a foot. We don't even know who's going to be backing him up. They both didn't play today, didn't practice. I mean, Josh, call me crazy. I think this could be a huge game for Jared Verse. Like, I think he could absolutely blow this game up. And then say he doesn't, he has his usual issues of finishing the sack, right? Well, now you have Byron Young off the other side, and you got those stunts that you're going to pull, literally. And, Poona Ford can rush the passer. We know that. But Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, I think Kobe Turner's playing some great football lately. I don't know, man. I don't see how this can't be like it was against the Vikings if they get in Darnold's head early on.
Jared Verse is having a great year, as you mentioned, and he has the potential. And last game specifically, I thought he excelled in run defense. When I watched that game, it was pretty apparent. Some plays, it looked like he wasn't very involved. They were actually running away from him. But when they were running at him, I feel like he made his name known. And what I love about this chart specifically is how many players are on it. Minimum 15 pressures, and yet there's 8 Seahawks and 7 Rams. So what does that tell you about the depth of these teams and their defensive line? They got great defensive lines. And look at Nick Amenwari. In my opinion, I would vote him for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he's here, not even on the line, having 17 pressures. And that just shows you how they like to use him. They like to put him in every position possible. And I've read voters online say, I would actually vote him for multiple positions on the rookie list. So that just tells you why they drafted him and how he's excelling. But yeah, I think any of these players really have an impact on the game if they choose to show up that day. And I couldn't tell you which one is going to show up. I believe any single person on this list has the potential to disrupt the game. Even DeMarcus Lawrence, that was a great free agent signing and underrated at the time. I mean, people weren't really suspecting anything of this. He left Dallas and Seattle picked him up. But I mean, man, look at what he turned into this season. It's just amazing to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. They have a really nasty defensive front. The thing is, they're really fast in the second level, and especially because of Amenwari, but they're strong up front. I mean, you got Jaron Reed. They're going to win with a lot of power. I think the Rams have more quickness and speed, but they both pack a punch. And I think we saw that against Jaguars when the Rams pressure got to Trevor Lawrence, and the week before you see Seattle and their pressure got there. And I think these teams they wear you down. They wear down your offensive line, and they might not be winning the rep outright in quarter 1, but by quarter 4 in overtime, they're winning those reps. And that's really how these two go at it. As far as the dime corners go, and you do have the yards per coverage snap here, they're pretty damn good. You look at Reek Woolen, you look at Josh Jobe, you look at Devin Witherspoon. I want to add some context because I see a lot of people kind of try to discredit what the Rams did on the Thursday night offensively because Reek Woolen went down and Okada went down. It's like, and Kobe Bryant went down. It's like, for me, Devin Witherspoon was still playing. Josh Jobe was still playing. Eamon Wari played the majority of the game. I don't think it was just all of a sudden, they all went down, and that's when the Rams figured it out. The Rams were throwing on this defense. I think they got too cute with the passing attack, and they wouldn't put them away. And they also, to be fair, got cute with the running game, and they couldn't put them away. And I think that was the thing. But I don't look at that and feel like, the Rams they only took advantage once Seattle got injured. I don't really see it that way. As far as the blitz percentages go, you have it here. Seattle, it's funny how this goes about, like, based on who they're playing. But the early down blitz percentage, week 11 is the Rams, and then week 16 is the Rams. So, are we moving on up? Or are we moving on down? What are you thinking based on this one, Josh? Because it certainly looks like there's a pattern here, but the pattern just could be, I don't know, who are you playing against? It's like they didn't really blitz Bryce Young because they probably just didn't really feel like they had to. But then they blitzed the hell out of Brock Purdy, and you can see that there.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because of the success the Bears defense had blitzing on early downs. The Rams were almost unable to account for this for most of the game. And I just wanted to show you guys here is that Seattle does do it if it calls for it. If they believe that their opponent will be worse with an early down blitz, then they have the ability to do it. But they feel confident enough in the coverage they play, in the scheme that they play, that they probably don't need to do it unless they have to. And I want to go back to players getting injured in week 16. I had this stat shortly after the game ended. Nick Emenwari, Kobe Bryant, and Devon Witherspoon all left the game at some point in the latter half of the game. But with all three of those players on the field, I'm not saying any of them were responsible for Puka Nacua, but with those three players definitely on the field, he still had 7 targets and 132 yards and a 71.4 success rate, which is just elite numbers. So I don't want to hear that as an excuse saying, that we didn't have those players. Well, they were there for when he made a big damage. Obviously, he had 225 yards, but still, he had 132 yards with them on the field. So there is no excuses in that regard.
I like that you said that. Okay, let's scroll down here. Game specific. Rams used 13 personnel since week 7 against Seattle. They've used it on 76 plays. Every other personnel is 67 plays. So 53% of the time against Seattle this year in 2 games, they have used 13 personnel. They haven't been able to run with the success that they were hoping for, although albeit a lot of that is Kevin Dotson was out for the entire second game. Then the EPA per play, it looks as though they're better outside of 13 personnel, but I don't know if that's actually going to be the literal fact. And the reason why I feel this way is because I think Tyler Higbee unlocks more to your 13 personnel grouping. I think having Devontae Adams is going to help you out because you can, when Puka Nacua was coming off the field, Mumfield was coming in. So now it would be Devontae Adams. And also Kevin Dotson being back. I just think also Seattle's seen it now twice. There are different things that you could look at, but also Terrence Ferguson, I think, is a better player than he was in week 11. I think he's a better player than he was in week 16. I think he's more experienced. So that also adds another wrinkle. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? Because this is a really interesting one. And honestly, the 13, you look at the rushing success when it's not against Seattle, it's definitely high, but the success rate still leans towards running out of other personnel groupings. However, the EPA per pass is 0.46 running out of 13. And that success rate, while still below the others, seems like they're having more, they're having bigger plays when they run out of 13 against other teams, but Seattle might just have the personnel to match it up well enough. I still think that they can run it effectively, but I think they're going to have to, they're going to have to show me, because, how big of a deal is Kevin Dotson going to make? Well, we're going to find out. I think it's going to be a huge deal. How big of a deal is Tyler Higbee going to make? We'll find out, but I also think it's going to be a huge deal. We'll see, but what are your take? What is your thoughts on this?
When you look at 13 personnel, these are all factors that you need to consider. Kevin Dotson, like you beat out of the game. Well, look at Leonard Williams right there to take his spot, Justin Dedich. And, Justin Dedich is great for what he's asked to do. He's a backup player. He's not starting player. But when you're going against Leonard Williams, you're going to have some issues there. And I'm not even surprised about that. So Kevin Dotson for sure. And like you mentioned, Tyler Higbee as well. But if you look at how I colored this thing, and let me explain exactly how I did it. 13 personnel is colored relative to the league, just because no one really runs it enough. I mean, we're the only ones basically that ran it any sizable amount against Seattle. But when I look at Seattle other and NFL other, that is relation to the Seahawks and the NFL. So that other, we're basically the best team in any other personnel against Seattle, if that makes sense. But 13 personnel, again, that's comparing to league-wide numbers. So league-wide against every other team except Seattle, the Rams are really the best. But again, they have struggled and they haven't proven yet that they can succeed with 13 personnel against Seattle. But do I think it's possible to do so? 100%. And again, Tyler Higbee, Kevin Dotson, Devontae Adams, these will all be key players in making sure that maybe this works this time around.
And it's also an interesting thing to note, because you could go back and you could wonder, if say 13 just isn't the move against Seattle, and you saw those plays, a lot of those explosive plays came out of 11 against Seattle. If that's the case, then was that 21-19 a fair in week 11, them trying to force something that wasn't working because it just dominated the 49ers the week prior? Makes you wonder, So, yeah, I'm definitely curious. I know Sean McVay probably has these numbers as well. I would have to imagine he does. But I'm very curious to see what they go about, moving forward. And, of course, it's a smaller sample size. It's a decent sample size, but it's not like we're getting 500 snaps between the two. So that's very interesting. But it is a good sign that, like any other personnel, they've had success against Seattle. And not just success, they've had the best success, which isn't really a shock because it kind of coincides with the fact they've had 7 of Seattle's 11 touchdowns given up in 9 games. So, it kind of is par for the course. But this is interesting. So the proportion for the scoring in the red zone.
And just in the 2 games, by the way.
Yeah, in the 2 games, the Rams are significantly better at scoring touchdowns in the red zone against the best, if not the best, red zone defense in the league. And the field goal percentage is higher for Seattle. The turnover percentage is higher for Seattle, and neither have missed a red zone field goal. So that's interesting. That is definitely an interesting one. And then the fourth quarter, week 16. Take me through this. This is crazy.
Yeah, so this is an advanced breakdown of the fourth quarter. And what I want your eyes to dictate to, because there's a lot on this page, I want you to look at the success column. What this is basically saying is that on the drive, was there, out of all the plays summed up, a positive EPA? Yes or no? So there's 3 successful drives here, and both teams were having a lot of no's. Let me count this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 drives that literally led to nothing. Of course, if you see right here, the opponent touchdown, that is the return that Rashid had. So again, that was successful, so you could count that as well. But I want you to look at missed field goal. Yes. The Rams, people were saying Matthew Stafford, he couldn't get it done, just punting it away. Right there, they got in field position. The metric has the drive as successful, but the field goal was missed. And I can't necessarily blame that on Harrison Mevis. That's the only field goal he's missed all season. But the opportunity was there to probably end the game and not even go to overtime.
No, it's true. That's a very good point. And, you look, and the Rams had more successful drives. in fourth quarter. If you look though, these drives, man, I mean, a lot of 3-play drives, and you got 7, 8, nothing crazy to kind of. And this is where I feel like the Rams need to just attack with kind of those long developing drives that take 10, 12 plays, take like 6 minutes off the clock. These are the drives that made last year going up against a Philadelphia Eagles team so hard to come by, because you could do everything right, and then if you just miss a field goal or you go down the field and you throw an interception at the goal line, well, now the Eagles are going to take 8 minutes off the clock, because that's just how that they operated last year. That's how I want to operate. I understand you don't have a mobile quarterback. I get that's part of it, but I want to be the team that I don't need. It's the playoffs. I no longer care about points. I really don't care. Just the W. And the best way to do that is to eat the clock, score, and make it so the other team doesn't have as much time to score.
Yeah, precisely that. And again, they couldn't get it done in the fourth quarter. They couldn't delay any time, really. I mean, if you look at all these drives, and you don't have to go to it, I'll just name them right here. A punt, 1 minute drive, 1 minute 12 drive, 1 minute 36 drive, 1 minute 1 second drive, 1 minute 36 seconds. It's just not enough. And you're giving Seattle way too much time. And ultimately, they brought it to overtime, and they won it all in that game.
Yeah, no, that's true. Pass catchers in Seattle versus the Rams, to the shock of nobody per route run. Puka Nacua with the crazy numbers here. But, we also see, I mean, these are good numbers from JSN. These are good numbers from Kenneth Walker. Xavier Smith, I have to imagine we see Xavier Smith in this game. Like, I know I was complaining that we're not seeing a lot of Xavier Smith, Tutu Atwell. This just feels like the moment. They're probably going to run a decent amount of 13 again. And my guess is that they didn't want to go for the deep shot against the Bears with that field the way it was and the conditions as a whole. And also, to be fair, like, the pass protection wasn't as good as I think they were expecting it to be. I know it wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. So that could have been part of it. But this week, there's really no excuse. You got to utilize that deep threat. What are your biggest takeaways on this one?
Yeah, I actually think it's interesting how effective Kenneth Walker was as a running back. I mean, he's number 2 in yards per route run. That's what this is ranked on. But number 3, look at Xavier Smith. And the yards are great, but I also included EPA per route run. That's not really something you ever hear of. But what this is basically saying is how much effective and efficiency are you doing per route run? And Xavier Smith with 0.35 EPA per run. And if I told you that was per target, that would be an elite metric. This is not even per target. This is per route run. Every time he steps on the field and runs a route, he's not even necessarily targeted. So that's just an elite number right there. And I feel like Xavier Smith, every time his number is called, he answers. And, Konate Mumpfield, 7th round rookie this year. I do believe he has a future in this offense. I just don't necessarily understand the amount of usage that he gets at this point.
I don't
know if he's ready for it. But, AJ Barner, and he's going to be a weapon here. But something I've noticed about Jackson Smith-Njigba is that with the less amount of pass attempts, overall, he's less productive. I mean, the first 11 weeks, he was on an unreal pace. He was going to break almost every record out there. But it's not his fault that they've decided to pass less, but as a result, he is much less effective. And maybe they'll look back to him for this game.
Yeah. That's a good point. And they've done a nice job kind of bottling him up as much as they can. They did give up the kind of game-winning touchdown because of the 2-point conversion. That was to JSN, but they've kind of held him in, under wraps as best as you can. I mean, he's probably the second best wide receiver in the league right now, only behind Nacua. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's it. But, I think there's a real excitement here for Rams fans. I really do. There is a reason to be cautiously optimistic. There's reason to have caution. I get that. There's reason to feel like, okay, this team won. What does that do for their confidence? Because they had never beaten Matthew Stafford before as the Rams quarterback. So, do they build off that? Whatever. Is there any truth to the rest, the ample rest that they got? To me, I don't really think so. And the reason I think that is because the Rams, it's not like they got a lack of rest. They played on a Sunday just like they if anything, they played on a Saturday and then they got to play on a Sunday. So now they're back on schedule, essentially. And now they're playing on a Sunday again at same time. And like the whole miles traveled thing, that's supposed to have already hit you if it was going to hit you, That would have hit you going into the playoffs. You would have just looked like you had nothing left in the tank. And we've seen those teams that just look dead in the water. The 49ers, they just ran out of gas, But the Rams just are different, man. It seems like everyone seems to know what the Rams should do, and they don't listen to the Rams. Like, oh, you're really going to go to London the day before? You're not even going to be there for 24 hours? Yup. They're going to get a 35-7 win. You're really going to go to Chicago and not practice in Chicago? You're just going to go there right before, not be there for 24 hours? Yup, they're going to get a win. And we haven't really had a chance to talk since, but I would tell you right now, the fact that they were able to overcome the Caleb Williams tsunami of momentum that came with that throw, have a 3-and-out in OT and still find a way to win. That's what championship teams do. That's just the ultimate thing, because I don't know how many teams in this league could have withstood that much momentum and pressure, had the 3-and-out, and still found a way to win that game.
Yeah, and something that you look throughout the league, and while I feel like Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay emphasize as a team, is adversity. Of course, the numbers are regressed, but I don't think that paints a story of this team. I don't think you can say that they have no shot in this team because they fell off. The numbers aren't as great, but they're finding ways to win games that they normally wouldn't have won in the first place. And that's something that you have to credit them for. And when you look at history of the Rams, let's go back a few years in the Sean McVay era. This is the fourth time that they're playing a team 3 times in one season. In 2020 season, they played Seattle and they beat them in the first matchup by 7 points. They lost the second matchup by 11 points. And in the last matchup, they won by 10 points in the playoffs. Okay. Then you have Arizona the next year. They lost the first matchup. And they won the second matchup, and they won the third matchup. And of course, our Super Bowl year, San Francisco lost both times in the regular season, but in the NFC Championship, when it was all on the line, they got a win. And this is what's something you're going to have to expect. These players on both sides of the team have to come out and realize that these are the 2 best teams in the NFL. And I don't know if there's any team even close to that. And you see that in the lines of betting for the Super Bowl. Whatever team makes it, they're favored by at least 3 points. And that's what you have to come and take away out of this, is that there's nothing that we can predict about which team will win. This is about as 50-50 chance out of any game I've covered ever. I honestly could not tell you who I believe will win. Obviously, you hope that it's the Rams, but these teams are so well matched and so geared to stop each other and to manipulate each other's defenses that it could go any way.
I got the Rams win 24-23. I think, McVay being 6-1 in playoff games that are decided by 3 points or less, 4-4 against anything else. And then, I think you look at just how McVay and McDonald had been. I mean, those 5 games that they had, right? Or let's just talk about the 4 games Stafford played in. Let's not necessarily talk about the Jimmy Garoppolo game, although that came down to literally the goal line. Like, that was at the goal line. But the 4 games that Stafford played in, right, that 3 of them were in overtime. And the other one that wasn't in overtime, they won by 2 points. So it's been a 2-point win. It's been a 38-37 loss. It's been a 26-20 overtime win. That is crazy to me. Even the Garoppolo one, they lost on the final play of the game, 4th down at the goal line. That was it. They had a chance to win with their backups in, and the Rams backups in, and their starters in for Seattle. So I feel like McDonald has the league by the balls. I really do. But luckily for the Rams, I think the Rams have a really good shot at McDonald, and I think Sean McVay just is doing a really nice job of sticking with him, because I just don't really get the sense that, oh yeah, McDonald owns this league, but it's like McVay is averaging 28 points per game. That's 10 points per game higher than all the teams in 31 games against Seattle, since McDonald has taken over as the head coach. So it tells me that, yeah, McDonald's a problem, but that might be more so your problem. We actually, you know what I mean? Like, if you're Sean McVay, you have to feel good about the fact, we've put up 28 points per game against this guy. And I mean, I said it, when he was hired, I said, look, like, it's a good thing Seattle hired him, because they got destroyed, and the 49ers got destroyed by him. And I mean, Jared Goff and the Lions got destroyed that year, and the Cardinals got destroyed. The only team in the NFC West that actually had a chance was the team that took him to overtime, and they lost because of a special teams, touchdown, right? That was a 31-37 game or whatever. I mean, there you go. That's what we're talking about. So, yeah, I feel really good about this game. I know it sounds weird. It's like you have them winning 24-23, but you feel really good. I think it's just kind of how it's going to work out. I think it's a compliment to the job that McDonald's done. I think, Darnold's going to turn over the ball a couple times potentially, and I still think they're going to just barely lose, because that's just how good of a football team they are. So, yeah, 24-23 is what I got. And do you have any final thoughts before we head on out of here? You want to pick your, shoot your shot, pick your moment like you did last week?
Yeah, I actually have the Rams winning 27-24, and you have to give respect to the Seahawks organization for the move that they did and bringing Mike Macdonald to the Seahawks. I mean, Shanahan and McVay, these are offensive geniuses, and they were running this division for what it felt like 5+ years. And so someone finally is going to take a stand and say, I'm going to hire a defensive coach that is built to hopefully limit these teams. And so you have to respect what they've done and his vision of the team, because not only that, they drafted for his vision and what scheme they wanted to play. They just didn't draft players that had good rankings. They drafted players that worked specifically for their defensive scheme. And that you have to give credit for. But ultimately, I do think that Sean McVay has found enough success against Mike Macdonald to win games. Again, I do think that Mike Macdonald is a huge limiter of Sean McVay, but I believe that Sean McVay has showed his hand and has success at times. Someone like Vic Fangio, who has Sean McVay in real struggle in almost every game. I don't know if Mike Macdonald is there yet. I don't know if he's someone that you can compare to that and say he is stopping everything McVay is trying to do. I think McVay still has enough success to close out a game this weekend.
I do too. And I think push come to shove, are you going to go with McDonald and Sam Darnold, or are you going to go with Stafford and McVay? And I just think that I'm going to go with Stafford and McVay. That's just the reality of it. Stafford has nearly 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, only a pick in those 4 matchups against McDonald. And they're 2-1. Stafford, it took all of that in the kitchen sink for Stafford to finally lose to the Seahawks as Rams head, quarterback. So, yeah, that's how I feel. I will, let's see. I'll let you go because I got ad reads and supers to read. I don't want to keep you, for all of that, but appreciate your time, man. And yeah, I cannot wait for Sunday.
Thank you, man. Hopefully we can do this one more week. That's the plan.
That's exactly it. Yes. Maybe we do it 2 weeks. Who knows? You get 2 weeks of the Super Bowl. So, but all right. Well, appreciate you, Josh. And I will see you hopefully next week or at some point soon. And yeah, this is going to be a fun one.
Thank you, Jake, for having me on. And as always, hopefully we see a win.
Absolutely. Everyone go be sure to follow at Joshios Tweets on Twitter. Josh, appreciate you. And we are going to wrap this thing up. But before we do, we got to get super chats and all of that. I didn't want to keep Josh long because I know how busy he is. I appreciate his time. So first off, Sleeper, appreciate y'all. Be sure to check out the 100% bonus match up to $100 using my code JKB. You'll get a $20 free entry as well. And if you already have the account, it's probably sitting there for you if you haven't already used it. Again, JKB is the code. The link is in the description below. Matthew Stafford, 0.5 yards, is indeed the freebie as well. So you want to get in on the action, use the code JKB over at Sleeper. And by the way, it's super chat time. So Zaylor Swift, thank you for the 2. Puna Ford, Kobe Turner, Fisk, gotta eat. I agree. They absolutely do. Appreciate you. Zaylor Swift's coming back at you with the 5. K9 is not built for pass protection. That's a really good point. It's the reason why they had Charbonnet. K9 also doesn't do well with high volume. He might fumble something. Well, we'll see, but there's definitely some truth to what you're saying. And I love K9. I think he's a great talent, and I do think he's the better running back, but it is fair. Maybe I'm a little hard on Charbonnet because he does the little things that I really enjoy, like pass protection and holding on to the football and even running through contact. That's a good thing. Zaylor Swift is back at it with another 5. Appreciate you. 45 million people watched Rams Bears. If I'm the NFL, I want the Rams to win. Because the Seahawks are a boring team. Vanilla AF and will be exposed Sunday. That's funny. Yeah, I don't buy into the NFL wants this team or that team. I think they just want a fun game, and I think they got exactly what they wanted in terms of you get the 2 best teams in the NFL duking it out to go play in the Super Bowl. I don't know if it gets better than that, but appreciate it nonetheless. And then Zaylor's back at it with the 2. Refs no faded 2-point conversions calls, so criminal. Yeah, didn't love those, but we move. Jeffrey, thank you for the 2. Hope y'all do better than the Niners. They definitely will. Go Hawks. Jeffrey with the 2. Hope Rams forget they employ a running back again. That's a funny one there. And Jeffrey with the 5. I'm going to need Stat Padford to throw some picks in this one. Our special team's going to take one off kicker's foot for a touchdown will be the difference. You had better hope so. If Stafford doesn't throw interceptions, it's going to be hard to beat this team. And if you don't take a kick back for a touchdown, it's going to be hard to beat this team. What if I hit you with this? I kind of have a feeling that we're going to see one, but I think it's going to be on the Rams side. I'm kind of leaning, I was trying to speak it into existence on Downtown Rams, and now I'm starting to believe it. Call me delusional, but I remember Jordan Whittington had like a 70-yard return that was taken back by a BS call to start the season against the Houston Texans. Whittington got going last week a little bit in the receiving game, got the juices flowing, 37 yards. I believe 29 of those were yards after the catch. Look, I'm not saying, but I am saying, I would not be surprised if 88 houses the opening kickoff of the game. And the way the Rams, use that potential, that starting drive after they defer, dude, I would just rather them get the ball in the first half to start the first quarter. I would rather them just start with the football, get off to a lead, put some pressure on Sam Darnold in more ways than one. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But I don't think people are ready for it. 88 problems. If he houses the opening kickoff, oh my God, that place is going to be quiet. That is going to be so quiet. You will not hear a pin drop. So yeah. Anyway, I could see it. I don't know why. I could just feel it. Everyone's talking about one thing, then the other thing happens. You never know. Deuce Falco, appreciate you with the 20. I keep saying it. Dotson needs his lick back. Rams win it. I do feel that way. Hey, I'll say this. Karma's a bitch. And I'll tell you right now, if, we don't know for sure. We have an idea. If Derek Hall actually meant to step on Kevin Dotson's ankle, karma. I'm just saying that's the only thing that you could say in this whole circumstance that there could even be like a karma moment. There you go. You have a player on the other team that last time he stepped on a guy's ankle. If that was met with intent, don't be surprised that the football gods hit you with a karma bomb. I would not be surprised. Zaylor, thank you for the 2. Yeah, we punting out of bounds or bounce outs. LOL. Well, we'll see. I mean, you're hopeful that happens, but it's never a guarantee. I would not defer to the second half. I don't trust the way. I don't trust the way that they play football coming out of the half. You know, it's all like, oh yeah, the Rams get the ball in the second half. How many times did they score in the opening drive of the second half? It just feels like they never do anything. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I don't really care to right now, but that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this ultimate preview for Rams and Seahawks Part 3 featuring Joshios. Again, at Joshios Tweets. Be sure to follow him over on Twitter. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Go tell somebody if you like what you heard. And also be sure to drop a comment and hit the like button if you like what you heard. We'll see you guys soon.